Aloha, this is Brian Watkins, and this is a video tutorial for our Test 2 in Accounting 386. Let's get into it. We have two data files. We have one that consists of customer data, Test 2 customer data, and another one that has credit sales. And what we're going to do is prepare the data so that we can find out information about our company's accounts receivable. So we take the first data, looks like this. We're going to do a Control A and just copy everything straight. It's not a large file, okay, but just to make sure that we're okay, we're going to remember this last record here. Looks like Kareen and Groveland, Florida. So open up a Word document and paste all of that information. There we go. Okay, so now we're in Word. So let me make this bigger here. What we're going to do is, again, Control A. Let's single space it. Okay, let's see if we can't remove more spaces. There we go. Next thing we do is we analyze it to see if we can clean up the data. Look for regular substitutions. And the one that jumps out at me is the A. So we're going to use the replace function and look for that ampersand, I think they call it, and replace it with a small a. Okay, it's coming into focus now. We made a bunch of replacements. It looks that this 2010 and this one here is supposed to be a number, so probably 00 for that sideways S that we call a tilde. Okay, so we're going to look for that tilde, which is to the left of the 1 key on your keyboard, and we're going to replace it with 2 zeros. Great. Okay, now in order to get this into Excel, we need everything to be consistent. We need the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again on all of the records. So when you look at how characters are showing up in Word, I'll move the screen up here. If we hit that mark, the Pilcrow sign there, that will show the codes. And you can see that all this is a bunch of line returns. So it's easy to find those in Microsoft Word, easier than in Excel. So we're going to replace, and the trick here is that there's a lot more functionality to replace than you'd think about. So we're going to go to Special Replace, and here are the names of all of those strange things that can pop up in your data. And you'll remember in our first test that non-breaking space caused trouble. So here we want that paragraph mark, which is an up arrow or a caret P, and we're going to look for every 2 of those. We're going to replace with just 1 of them. Okay, now watch what that does. That brings everything right into line, because what we want is 1 return between each piece of data, just 1. Now if you still see doubles, that would mean you had 3 in a row, and you just do the same exact thing. Look for 2, substitute 1. Okay, so now we're ready to take it, put it on the clipboard, Control A, and let's bring it into our Test 2 data cleaning. Alright, so we're going to just paste, keep the text. Alright, widen it a bit, we can see our dates. It looks like that was my old data, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to make sure I pick the right data. I can't even remember what it was called here. There we go. Okay, so here it is. Right click, whoops, Control A, right click, copy. Now we'll try pasting. Paste. There we go. Alright, so now we have to change this into different fields for each data, for each piece of data. So we have like the birthday, the name, the address, city, state, and zip, and the year that they first did business with us. And the trick here is to recognize that you got a few thousand things here. Let's automate it. Let's use a macro. So we go to Developer. If you haven't turned on Developer tab, you go File, Options, Customize Ribbon. That's your Developer tab. And once you get there, what we're going to do is a macro. So let's start with A1 selected, and you have to use relative references. Okay? That means that everything that's going to happen will happen wherever we end the macro. So if I end the macro over here, it'll start from 011 next time. Alright, so make sure that's toggled, and then record macro. And we'll just call it data clean. That works for me. We'll give it a shortcut, Control-Shift-P. Should do good. Store it in the workbook. We don't need to leave a description. So we hit OK. Now we're recording. So we have to be very careful not to use the mouse and not to arrow past the edges of the spreadsheet, which would cause an error. So we're going to do Control-X and arrows to the side, and Control-V to paste it. Down arrow, side arrow, very carefully, Control-X, and then use those arrows to come back and paste it. Very careful. Control-X, Control-V, Control-X, Control-V, Control-X, and Control-V. Now, we're going to carefully go to A1, hold the Shift key down, go down 4, and now we're going to use the mouse, and we're going to right-click, delete, shift cells up, and then do one down arrow. So that will leave us right at the beginning of the next record, which is what we want. So we're going to stop recording. Alright, now if we did it right, let's do an autofill here. Or an auto space. Select those, and then I'm going to double click on any one of the boundaries between the columns. We'll auto space it out. Okay, so now what we can do, we're going to do Control-Shift-P. And we just hold it down until it gets through all of our data. You could also use a for until loop in VBA to do this. But this is kind of a unique, we're writing a macro just for this data file, so why spend a bunch of time in VBA? We'll just hold the button down until all those lines of data have been cleared. I think we're getting close. Okay, and we confirmed Groveland, Florida. That was the same as our data, our raw data, Groveland, Florida. So we know we've got all the data now. So we can close that text file. Now let's get this cleaned up. So first thing we're going to do, let's add a row here so we can put headers in. Actually, let's add a few rows. Let's insert those rows. Okay. Now, this is going to be a birthday. This is a name. And this is an address. And here we're going to have to do some work. So let's put in some columns here. Space that out, because you run the risk if we use text to columns, it might overwrite our data. We don't want to do that. So we're going to go Data, Text to Columns. Okay, and what is common to all of these data records? That comma. So that's our delimiter. So we're going to use the comma to split this up. Oh, it's not seeing anything because it's not looking at the data. Sorry. So start on Fort Wayne, go down. That ought to work better. Text columns, delimited. Take out the tab. Okay, it's going to break it right down into our cities. So next and finish. So now we have city. Okay. Now we need to strip out our states. So we're going to bear in mind, look at that little A there. We got to fix that. So let's just do this all at once. We're going to upper to make sure that our answer is in upper text. And then we're going to mid to extract something from the middle of this. And we're going to start, it looks like there's a space ahead of it. So we're going to start on, we're going to use this text, start on 2, and take 2. So we're going to start on space 2, which should be the I, take 2 characters, I in, and then be done. Okay, that looks like it works. So we're going to copy, paste the values. That's my state. And we've taken care of the little a. Down here we had an A somewhere. Alright. Now we need the zip. Okay, we're going to get that by just starting at the right of K9 and taking 5 characters. That's the zip code. Okay, and you want to be careful not to accidentally redefine this as a number, because then you don't get a 0 in front of it, and it makes it tough to work with. So we want to make sure our zip codes have zeros if they're appropriate for that particular place. Alright, so now we have zip. That little notch at the top is just telling us that it's a number stored as text. So we'll just ignore that. Ignore. Okay, and we're going to get rid of this column that we're done with. So we have birthday name, address, city, state, zip, and then this one here, we'll just call it first year, because this is the first year that we've done business with that customer. I'll delete my extra column. I can shrink everything now. Alright, we'll auto width again. Now we're looking at that A problem. Okay, so Allison there has a small a, Arbor Court has a small a, Aurora, easy to fix. We're just going to go right next to our data so we can use the autofill, and we're going to say proper the address. Okay. If I widen that, you'll see what's going on. Copy it down. There, Arbor, we've fixed it. So now we're going to take all of that data that we just fixed, and we're going to copy it on top of our old data. Got to be careful with that. So now that's fixed. So now I'm going to change I9 to H9 so that we properize our names. Copy. Paste values. Okay, let's look down here to make sure that the Allison, okay, that's good. Now we're going to take and properize our city. So we take that down, right click, copy, paste the values. Okay, now we have the city. I think everything's pretty clear at this point. I don't like looking at the grid lines. Let's get rid of column F. Alright, and we have some clean data. And if I pull this down, let's rename this sheet Customer Master File. All right. Now that done, let's get a new sheet and let's look at our next data. This data is not going to fit on the clipboard. Okay, I'll just tell you straight up, won't do it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go find this file where it exists. So I'm going to save as speed trial sale data, and I'm going to save this in the desktop. Done. So now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to widen my column so that I have some room to work. And we're going to go data from text from the desktop. Speed trial sale data. Import. All right. And is it delimited? Let's look at this data. What is unique to each piece of the data? Everything is either paid or not paid, so they all end in a D. So we can cut this real nicely by looking for lowercase d's. Now we lose the D, but we can always put that back. So next, and finish. All right. So now if we go to the end of our sheet, we can do the column function to find out if we got all of the records. 4381 is correct, so I'm going to get rid of that. Go back to the beginning. Okay, and let's do Control A to select everything, right click, and copy. Now, the reason why copy works here but didn't work getting the data into the spreadsheet is that the computer's not really copying every character. It's only copying 4,000 addresses, which is perfectly, it's got room for that. So we're going to go here to row 4, right click, and use the transpose paste to take that horizontal and make it vertical. Great. Okay, so now we've got our records vertical. Let's start stripping out here. And one thing that comes to view real quick is that we have dates in the middle. So if I do text to columns and I delimit them on that date slash, I immediately get a reasonable result. So let's take a look here. Okay, now what we've done, we've got 2016, we've got, this is 1 through 30, so this is the date, and then the last two here look to be the month. Okay, so if we take everything but the last two out of our first one here, so we're going to start at the left, and we're going to take whatever the length of A4 is, minus 2. That gives us a number that looks like it goes from 1 to 196. Here's a 2, so that would be our customer number. So we have just successfully stripped out our customer number. Now, I want to pause that and check what I did with the string, but basically I took the length of the string minus 2 characters for the month and took that many from the left. Okay, so this is our first field. This is the customer number, or customer no. Okay. All right, now our next one, we're going to try and get this date together. Okay, so the first thing we do, we know that the last 2 characters, so starting from the right of that text, those 2 characters are going to be my month number. I'm going to concatenate that with the date slash, and then I'm just going to do, whoops, that was wrong. Let's undo that. Start over. Okay, so I'm going to take the right of A4, 2 numbers from the right. That's going to give me the month. Concatenate that with a slash. Then take B4, which is the number. Concatenate another slash. And then take from the left of C4, 4 characters, which will be the date. Wonderful. So I now have the date. So I'm going to copy that over our nice little formula there. And this would be the sale date. Okay, next it's going to be a little more complicated. Okay, I'm going to have to take everything except those first 4. I basically want to strip out everything but the first 4 so I see just my name. So let me take a look here. I'm going to start from the middle of this string, and I want to get starting at number 5, and I want to get whatever the number of characters is of that C4 minus the first 4, actually. Okay? So the length of this is 2016 is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I went 15 minus 4, which is 11. So starting at the I, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, that'll do it. All right, so now we have what looks like our sale amount and the status of the sale. Okay. So now we're going to do another cut, and it looks to me like we're going to have, we have paid or not paid. So we're going to treat them differently. So if from the right 3, they all have PAI from the right. Okay, so that's not going to work. So if I say the right 7, so if the right 7 characters of F4 equal NOT space PAI, okay, then I do one thing. And so what I'm going to do there is I'm going to take whatever, I'm going to start at the left, and I'm going to take out of F4, and I'm going to take the length of F4 minus 7, which would be the not paid, NOT space PAI. Okay, that will give me that 763. I'll concatenate that with a space, and I'll just use the word not. That'll make the next part easier, I think. Okay, and if it's false, I know I'm talking about just PAI, so I'm going to take from the left of F4 the length of F4 minus 3 for PAI. And I'll concatenate that. Well, actually, I'll just leave that without a space. Okay. Let's try that. 763 not. Okay. Oh, might as well put the paid in there. So I'm going to do that here. So I will say and concatenate a space paid. So now if I copy it down, I'll have either not or paid. Then I can use text columns. I can delimit. Oops, can't do text columns until I copy everything on top of itself. Now I can use text columns. It's delimited by a space. And finish. Okay. And then finally, if H4 equals not, return not paid. If it's not, you know it's paid. Okay, so this is going to fill in our status. So we're going to copy on top of it. So now we have the ability to delete that. This is our sale amount, which, let's be consistent, bold and underline, and turn that down. We can get rid of G, and we can just say this one is status. All right. So we could get rid of the first 3 columns, get rid of the first row, and that is a clean set of data for our accounts receivable. So we're going to name this AR data. Okay. Now let's go back here and let's look at the test. We have to now include data. Let's widen these out here. So column width 12. All right, what do we want to see? We want to see the AR balance for each of these customers. That's the whole point of the exercise. Once we see the AR balance for them, let's also take a look at the oldest sale. Okay, and let's ask days due for the oldest sale, and last name first. I think that'll do it. And then we'll end with a column. We'll just call it control. Let's take these and center them. All right. What we're going to do now is try to pull in our AR data. And in order to do that, we have to be able to match customer number, okay, to our other file here. So let's do this. Rather than just do name, we need a customer number. Let's insert a column here. We're going to take column F, cut, and up. Didn't like my size and shape. Okay, so I'm going to start over. I'm going to say the birthday, I'm cutting it, and I'm pasting it right here. Okay, so now I have the birthday in a different place, and I'm going to add a field here called customer number. I'll just leave it customer NO. Actually, that's a bad idea because I have the same one here. So I'm going to call it something else on my other one. Cust_num. The reason I'm doing that is that when I create arrays of data, I want them all to have unique names. Cust_num is going to be 1, 2, 3 based on this file. Let's center them, bold them, and take it all the way to the bottom. Okay, so now each customer has a unique number that we'll use to match their customer number here. Okay, got a little extra space. I'm just going to delete these columns. All right, let's go get our AR balance. Before we do that, we need a key. We could use the key to do that. All right, we're going to do a last name first. Okay, this should be bread and butter easy at this point. The last name comes from the right. Okay, and the last name is the length of the entire string, the number of characters in the entire string, minus the position where you find a space in D9. Okay, so that is our last name. I'm going to concatenate that with a comma space, and then I'm going to concatenate that with from the left. And I'm going to look at the same D9, and this time I'm going to take as many characters as one less than where the space is. So if the space is on the 5th position in Kimi Hey Dad, I'm going to subtract 1 from 5, and that will get it for me. So now I have my last name first. I'll copy that down and paste it. Alright, so now we've got our last name first. Let's go over to AR data and let's put a name on each of these. Okay, so our last name is going to be found in our master file. So in order to do this, I'm going to take a Control A. Whoops, come on, escape. Control A. Okay, now this is wrapping all of my data. Okay, and I'm going to call this whole thing Customer Master. Okay, and then I'm going to Control Shift F3 or create from selection names from the top row. So now I can reference everything with the names. Alright. So far so good. Let's go AR data, and we're going to do a VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP using the customer number in the customer master file in column let's try 12, and I want it to be an exact match, so I say false. Nope, was it 12? Let's go back and count it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright, that makes little sense. So let's go find out what we did. Oh, I'll bet you that what we have to do now is change our lookup from a text to a number. Okay, so we're going to have to take all of our customer numbers here and turn them into values. So I take them down, then I copy them, paste them, and now you can see that our VLOOKUP works. Okay, so we'll get rid of that. F, delete, and copy our last names down. Now, just to be careful, I'm going to put an if error, and at the end of this, say no customer number. Okay, so that if this ever fails, if I get an NA, it will tell me that it was looking for a customer name. Alright. So now we're tying these together. Let's try to fill this all in before we do any data activities here. So what we're going to do now, we have one selected, insert, pivot table, go. So now we're creating a pivot table. We want our pivot table to begin with our customer's last name. We want to know the date that they bought everything. Okay, I'm immediately going to go, I do this in all my pivot tables, design, report layout, tabular form. I think that just makes it easier to see what's going on. If I saw just months or years there, I would right click on these dates and I would say ungroup, but they look ungrouped already. So now I'm going to add sale amount. Okay, there's our amount, and our status we'll put into columns. So this 1983 was paid, this 230.83 was not paid. I'm only interested in outstanding accounts. So I'm going to hit the filter button and don't show me anything that was paid. Great. Put a style on this just to, there we go, show we know what we're doing. And then as a last measure, we want our data right now as we're working to kind of match this order. So what we're going to do is take the customer number and pull it into the row box just until you see that little green line show up. Then I drop it, and now my orders here are, or my pivot table is set up just like my customer master file. Alright, so let's go grab that AR balance. Hit an equal. I'm going to go into sheet 3 here and click on Hey Dad Kimmy Total. There we go. You could also click on customer number, but let's just do it this way. So get pivot data, hit enter, automatically came in here. Alright, so what this does is it's looking for customer number 1. Well, I want the customer number to be a relative reference so that as I copy this down, it'll always look over to the left. And the name, Hey Dad Kimmy, this is, you don't really need to do this because the customer number is enough to get the figure, but we'll make that N9. So that works just fine. So I've got my AR balance. Let's put a comma format on that. Alright, now what's the oldest sale right now that we're worried about? Oldest unpaid sale. So if we go to sheet 3, and what I'm going to do right now, before I forget, is right click on my sheet 3 and rename it AR pivot table. Okay. Now I'm going to come up here to the pivot table and I'm going to create a lookup with 3 columns. One column has the name, the other has the date and paid. And you can realize, okay, so here's the whole thing. And I'm going to, let's get back up here. Let's go to formulas, define name, and I'm going to say date data. Give it whatever name, just remember what the name is. And then when I go back to my customer, I can say my oldest sale will be found by using a VLOOKUP of my last name first, comma, in my date data. And it'll be the second column, and we want it to be an exact match. So there's the oldest sale. Let's double check. Let's copy a few of these. So 219, 218. 219 is my oldest. 218 is my oldest. Down to 28. Down to 28. Good. So I have the oldest sale now. Now the days due, we'll just take today and subtract from it that oldest sale and format it generally so that it's giving me a number without decimals. So that's been due 203 days, 204, and we can use that in our center it up. We can use that later to determine whose balances are more worrisome. The older they are, the more they make us worry. Alright, so it looks like I've got all my data. So this would be a good time to start making that data accessible. So let's go and figure out a way to make this whole thing scroll. So I'll freeze the panes so that my data can scroll underneath my headings. I think what I'll do is create a spin button. So we'll go Developer, Insert. We're going to use ActiveX because now we know how to code a button. And let's say that D3 or 4 will be our. So we'll just put a button here. And then I'll select D4 and I'll name that spin value, so that my spin button returns something out of there. Alright, so now we go into our code and we have a screen come up. We want spin button 1, and we want to first focus on what we do when we hit the down arrow. When we hit the down arrow, what we're looking for is the range that we named spin value. Well, I've got capital letters here. Let's do this. The range we called spin value is going to change by 1. So we're just going to make, when we hit the down arrow, we're going to increase the spin value by 1. Good. And then when we do the up arrow, we're going to make that go down by 1. So to save some typing, I'll just copy and paste that and make that go down by 1. Alright, so let's see if this is going to work. In order to see what's going on with spin value, I'm going to select all of my data, go home, and do a conditional format. So we'll have a new rule, and we'll use a formula, and we'll just say take whatever row we're on, minus 8 here, because I want row 9 to be row 1. And if it's equal to the spin value, let's just take that whole row and make it a black fill with a white bold italic font. We've done this in class a number of times. Okay, so you can see real quick that it started with 0 because there is no spin button yet. So as soon as I hit the down arrow, which I can't until I turn off design mode, I guess it won't let me. Oh, it did. Okay, so now I hit the down button. It's going down. The up button's going up. But the up button goes into negative numbers. So I want to make that up button stop when it gets to 1. I don't want it working when it's 1. I want it to just stop. So I go back to the code, and now I go to my up button, and what I want to do is say this whole thing here won't work. So I'm going to look at range spin value. If it's not equal to 1, then it can do its thing. Okay? So once it gets to 1, then it'll freeze and stop. So let's go back. So now when I go up, everything's good. When I go down, it stops at 1. Good. Now, we talked about we don't want our cursor to go off the page like that. We want it to always be visible. And in class we talked about how to use a macro and just kind of move your mouse around and see what commands pop up in the macro recorder. But for now we know what the command is. So we're going to go into our spin down arrow, and every time we hit that down arrow, we want our active window to small scroll, and we want to go in the down direction 1 line. Okay, so if we come back now, get out of design mode, Okay, but that will leave it right at the top. That might be, oh, and we lost our 1. Okay, so we want to get that back, let's go make this only happen. So if the range is greater than, let's say, 6, then do the small scroll down. Okay? At some point, if the range gets to above 196, just stop working. It'll exit the subroutine. It just won't work when it gets greater than or equal to 196. Perfect. All right, and the spin up, we should probably say, oh, thank you, VBA. Then exit sub. And on the spin up, we want the same kind of thing. We want the active window small scroll to go up by 1. Okay, so let's see if this is working. Turn off design mode. There we go. It goes down a little, and then when we go up, it goes up and it stops. Alright, so now that we're ready for that, we'll just center that behind our button. And let's get to our big formula. Alright, so we're going to merge, wrap, top, and left a cell. We're going to change the font per the requirements of the test to something other than the default. So pick whatever font you like. Let's make it a little bigger than it would ordinarily be. Now, I've thought about ways we can make this faster. So if you take your test, let's start with a double quote, and let's just type this whole thing, and then we'll take it apart piece by piece. Okay, so first we're going to type it. So I'm going to follow exactly along with the test. So name as a current. And here I'm going to pause so that I can get the typing down. Okay, I've typed everything straight from the test. Okay, I did it with a double quote at the beginning and a double quote at the end. And I included the brackets or the carets where we needed codes and such. So for some reason that didn't change. So we're going to change this font. And I'm going to make it a little bigger. Let's stick with that 18. Well, let's make it 16. There we go. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, put it in edit mode. And everywhere I see those double quotes, okay, I've got to make a change. So here, what I'm going to do is to get the name, I'm going to start right after. I'm going to say index, name, spin value. Now I've got the name. Okay? So I'm going to concatenate that with my double quote right there. Okay, so now that's all good. And I'm going to go right to where my next data piece is. And I'm going to put a double quote. Then I'm going to concatenate with index of AR balance, comma, spin value. And I'm going to go right to that little period. And I'm going to say concatenate to that period. Now, my AR balance is going to be unformatted. Okay, so I either use the text function or the dollar function to format it. So I'm just use dollar here. Good. Okay, so now I've got to concatenate to that little period. And I'm going to double. Now I have to get the line return. So I'm going to concatenate character 10. I want you to remember, character 10 is a line return. Okay, and so now I've got text again. So I'm going to concatenate, double quote, and then go to the next field that I need, put a double quote, and the oldest sale is found with the index. Okay, oldest sale for this person is the last sale, I think it's called. I'll move that over. There we go. So I'll say oldest sale, comma, spin value. Okay, so now I've got my oldest sale, and I put concatenate double quote. Now, the oldest sale we want to be in a different format. So I'm going to use the text function. Not test, text. And I'm going to use my data here, and I'm going to comma, and the format starts with a double quote. 4 M's gives me the full month spelled out. Space gives me a space. DD gives me the date. Comma gives me a comma. Space. 1, 2, 3, 4 Y's, and then close the function. So that will print it out February 19th, comma 2016. And okay, so now I'm going to text over here to this next bracket, double quote, concatenate. I need the oldest date. Okay. Oh, I see what I did wrong. Okay, so the oldest date I just did. So I'm going to take this X, okay, and I'm going to put it right here at oldest date, and concatenate, double quote. I'll go back and fix the other error later. Come to the end of the text, double quote, concatenate. This one wants to be number of days, so index days due, and concatenate double quote. So now I'm going to go to my days ago. Okay, so now let's go back and fix the problem that we had, because we have we had a missing oldest invoice due was for dollar index. What was my oldest sale for? Oh, I have to do the VLOOKUP here for that one. Okay, so instead of indexing it, I have to VLOOKUP my oldest sale. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is take VLOOKUP, and I'm going to say index customer number. That's going to be my VLOOKUP code. And I'm going to look in the date data, and I'm going to look at the third column, and I'm going to make it exact. That's my VLOOKUP. The second one closes my dollar function. Alright, so let's try this. Too few arguments for the function. Alright, so let's parse it now. Customer number needed, spin value. Alright. What did I leave off? Index dates due. Okay, I tend to make the same mistake there. Spin value. So all my indexes have spin value now. Good. And it doesn't like something. So, no problem. Hit formulas, evaluate formula, and let's see where everything breaks down. Give me hey dad, current balance of 715. Oldest invoice due was for... Okay, it doesn't like my oldest invoice due, because you see the NA there. So I'm going to close this, go to edit mode with the F2 key, oldest, so VLOOKUP index customer number. Okay, so the oldest invoice due, it went and took customer 1, and it was trying to match it up to the date data, and it couldn't find customer number 1 because I didn't use customer number. I used, bad mistake, I used last name first. Okay, so here I'm going to use index last name first, and that did it. Okay. So Kimmy Hey Dad has a current AR balance, blah. Oldest invoice due was for this amount and is dated February 19th, which was 230 days ago. Good. I can even make that a little bit bigger if I want, because that's kind of what we're doing there. All right. So now let's go in and let's put that second sentence. So we've done our first sentence. Now we want the second sentence. So the way to do this, we're going to turn everything into a huge if. Okay? So take at the end, and you put a parenthesis. Go to the beginning, if, and you put the open parenthesis. Now what's our test? Our test is going to be whether the AR balance, index AR balance, spin value, is greater than 2,500. That's our test. Comma. If it's true, then we're going to have a new sentence. And I'm just going to type the sentence the way we did before, straight off of the test. So let me get started. It's bracket, name, close bracket, space, has an AR balance of space, bracket, amount, close bracket, comma, which is in excess of allowable credit limits, period. Report this account to internal audit immediately, period, double quote, comma. All right. AR balance, BA. There we go. So now we need to come through and plug in the brackets. So I'm going to start here at the very beginning, and I'm going to say index, name, spin value. Got the name. Concatenate that with a space. Okay, and that's going to go right to here. So I'm going to double quote there, concatenate with index AR balance spin value, close the index, and then concatenate with a double quote. The index here needs to be inside the dollar function so that it displays right. Okay, now I need to get the amount. So I'm going to index. Oh, sorry, I already have the amount. Sorry. Okay, so amount, we want to concatenate with the double quote. We have amount, leave the comma there, and everything else is fine. Okay, so let's test it. The logical test is index greater than 2,500. The value of true, name has an AR balance, blah, blah, blah. Value of false is everything we just did and proved was right. Closing amount, done. Okay, let's put a 3,000 here, and let's go down and see if that works. There we go, it works. All right, so we have all of our text functions done. Now we're going to do the conditional formatting. Okay, the conditional formatting, the rules are given on the test. Okay, the first one we want to do is we want that 3,000 condition to go crazy. We want to make sure that that 3,000 gets flagged. So let's do the conditional formatting on the, make sure you have the cell, the big merge cell selected. New rule, use a formula, and if the AR balance spin value is greater than 2,500, that's the test. Let's do red fill with bold italic yellow font. Okay, so now Boom. There we go. All right. So now let's think through our other tests. What we want to do now is we want to find out whether the person involved has a seriously overdue or a seriously not overdue or some yellow that's in between. So we're doing conditional formatting. Let's add a rule. And this rule is going to be, we're going to have a bad situation where they're, so we're going to say equal OR. We're going to do the red now. And the red is to look at if the days overdue are greater than 230. So index days due spin value greater than 230, comma, the other condition is if the AR balance is greater than 2000. So index AR balance spin value greater than 2000. And then close the OR. My format is just going to be a fill. We're not going to do anything really fancy. We just want to go and get a nice red, but we're going to lighten it up. There we go. So a nice light red, just to tell us, hey, this person has a problem. So, okay. All right, so 237 should trip that. And it does. Okay, so we've got our red now. Well, now let's look for our green. So we're going to go conditional format. Remember, I started by selecting that cell. New rule, use a formula. Okay, equals or. It's green if the days overdue are less than or equal to 210. Index days due spin value less than equal to 210, comma, index AR balance spin value, and if that is less than 50, close it. Everything is good. They're not overdue. They have a very low balance if they are. So we'll make this a green. And let's lighten the green up a bit. All right, so let's see, who has less than 50? There we go. Shonda Shine is getting two things at once. We'll fix that. Okay, that's a green because it's not overdue. Good. And then we're going to do one last one. Okay, so new rule, formula. This formula is going to be literally everything else. So I'm just going to say days overdue, spin value greater than 0. And this one's going to be yellow, and we'll make it a light yellow. Okay, okay. Now, for our conditional formatting, which one's going to come first? So we're going to take a look at them now, and we're going to say, let's take our big one, and if it happens, stop. Then we'll take our red and say, if it hits the red, stop. Okay, and then finally we'll say, whoops, I did a mistake there. I want the green one to come up one and stop. Otherwise, anything left over is going to be yellow. So we'll apply this. So green. Okay. Not working. So the big one works, the red one works, but we're not getting the yellow. So let's go back. Take a look at the yellow. Manage. Okay. We put it in the right place. Days overdue, spin value greater than 0. Well, that's silly. We don't have something called days overdue. It's days due. There we go. All right, so now our colors are working. And we're going to go now to the control, and we're going to make the control turn colors the same, but the control is going to happen all the time. So we're going to take that whole, well, not that whole range. Let's go back up. Let's go home. So here I'm going to I'm not going to go to the very end. I'm just going to go to the end of my customer master data. Okay. So the biggest problem with conditional formatting is a failure to select all the cells you want it to be in. And we're going to go conditional formatting, new rule, use a formula. Okay? And we're just going to look at the line now. So where is my AR balance? It's K. So if K, and we're going to freeze it because it's always going to be on the same. It's always going to be in the same column, but we're going to let the row number float. So if K9 is greater than 2500, that's that really bad situation. We're just going to make it black. So that's our first rule. Okay, yeah, 3000. This is black here because let's fix that. So conditional formatting, manage rule. We're going to edit this one and make it only go to column in. There we go. So now let's go back to the control. We're going to do a new rule, use a formula, and let's use an OR, and let's do the red condition. So red would be if the days due, which is M9, are greater than 230, or my AR balance, which is in K, so I'm going to do K9 is greater than 2000. Okay, that's our red. So we'll just make it red. Alright, there's our reds. Now we're going to go back. Notice I don't have to keep resetting that. And this time I'm going to do my green, which is an OR. And I'm going to say if my days due, which is M, so $, M9 is less than equal to 210, or if my amount, which is in K, $K9 is less than 50, that's my green. Format green. And then everything left over, new rule. See, it's still selected, so I'm still working in there. And this time, I'm just going to say if my AR balance, if I'm looking at an AR balance, K9 is greater than 0, and it hasn't fit any of the other things, then make it yellow. So now let's go conditional formatting, manage the rules, and I'm going to put my yellow rule at the bottom. I'm going to bring up my black rule and stop, that's true. And then I'm going to bring my red rule up, stop if that's true. And then my green rule, stop if that's true. And if it falls through all of them, it's green. Alright. We're almost done. Okay, there was a couple other little things we're going to do. Not only do we want this to go red in this situation where we have a black, we want everything inside here to change. So we're going to go back to our full range, and we're going to do a new rule, and the formula is going to be that if, let's see, where's our AR balance? If K9 is greater than 2500, okay, then we're just going to have no fill, bold italic, red font. Okay, so let's go back up to the top. And of course it didn't work the first time, so we do it again. So go to Manage Rules, and this time we're going to put that rule last. That still didn't do it. Okay, so let's go back, Manage Rules. K9 is greater than 2500. So K9 would be the 3000. Oh, see those double quotes? That's happened to me so many times. Okay, edit the rule. Take those double quotes out. I don't know why it does that. Make sure you get the $sign though. And then hit OK. Alright. We don't let Excel get the best of us. So here, stop if true. That's always going to be true. And here, stop if true. Okay. Still not happening. Oh, it did happen. I just was on it. So what I want, okay. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that this rule doesn't operate. Okay, so I go back to my conditional formatting, Manage Rules, and let's put this down and say stop if true so it doesn't go black. Okay. That kind of lose it. I'm not sure I like that, so I'm going to take that off. We can do that. So we go conditional formatting, Manage Rules, and just put it the old way. That's better. I like that. Red. Good. Okay, last thing to do. We've got to put a couple macros in. Okay, we want a macro to take us to the top and a macro to take us to the bottom. So the way to do the macros is to make sure that you've got your developer. Let's just code them directly in Visual Basic here. Alright. Now, we need to be in a module. So we're going to go to our VBA project, Test 2, Module 1. Okay. This is the data clean module that we wrote automatically just a little while ago. But now we're going to have a sub, and let's just call it restart. So go up to the top. And all we have to do, let's say no matter where we are, we're going to active window, small scroll, and even if we're at the very bottom, oops, we're going to go up. Let's go up 250 lines. That'll probably make sure we get to the top. Then what we're going to do is take our range, spin value, equal to 1. Okay, let's see how that works. So sub restart. So let's go out to Google, and we'll look for a nice little restart image. Okay, how about the blue circle? Maybe that's a good one. So I'll say save image as, and I'll say restart. Run my desktop. Go back to my project, and I'm going to insert a picture from my desktop, and it was restart. And I'm going to make it small and put it right up here at the top. Right click, assign macro. Ignore all my grading macros there. Just go to restart. Okay, so if I happen to be all the way at the bottom and I hit restart, it jumps me all the way to the top. Good. Now let's do another one. Developer, Visual Basic, and I'm going to say sub go to end. Sounds good. And for go to end, all I have to do is set the spin value. So range spin value equals 196. I think that's all I have to do. So let's try this. We're going to go out to the internet, and this time we're going to say the end. Okay, there's a nice one. I'm going to save image as the end. I'm going to go back to my work. I'm going to insert a formula. Come on. Enter. Insert picture. The end. And make that nice and small. Put it right there. Right click. Assign macro. Go to end. Okay. Uh-oh. That didn't work. Something's missing. So it's changing the pointer, but it's not taking me to the end. Alright, so go to developer macro, go to end edits, and let's figure out what's going on here. So if we go to end, let's say active window scroll row. Okay, so the row that I want at the top of my window is going to be, let's say, 195. All right, let's try that. Ooh, that did it. So that means that 195, when I hit the end button, will become the top of my active window. So 1, 2. And that's that. And it looks like it took about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So I'm going to take this red here, and this makes me think about something. When I did the rules for red, I did not mean to turn a very small invoice, see that $16 red. So I think what we're going to need to do, and this will be a really quick fix, is go back to our conditional formatting rules. Okay, and that red one, we're going to edit the rule. Not that one. So let's cancel that one. This one. And instead of saying or, we're going to say it has to be both. This one has to be and. How's that? Okay, I think that'll make a better sort. So I hit OK, and then I'm going to go to Control now, and I'm going to manage the rule that goes for those. Edit the red rule, and I'm going to say and. Both of those conditions have to be true for it to be red. So that'll give us much less work to go and find the data that's bad. All right, and I'm going to adjust the data so that a little more of it falls into that. But I think that makes more sense, because here we have things to look for, but in your typical AR receivables, you're rarely going to have big problems. All right, so we'll make that an and with that, good luck. Talk to me if you have some issues or problems.